Serious. Guys, what is that one absolutely terrifying paranormal thing that happened to you? Was staying at a mountain house when I was around 15 years old. Around 3 a.m., I heard a crying whining sound coming from the stairs. I walked over and saw a little girl in the corner. When I called out, she turned, began approaching me with the crying getting louder. Her nails scraped the walls as she got up the stairs. As soon as she reached me, I woke up. That morning when I went down the stairs, I saw scratch marks on the wall in the same place her hand was. I asked about it, and no one knew how they got there. This happened to me years ago when I was still in middle school. During the summer, I always stayed up late playing games on my computer. I shared a room with my brother and we both have our own beds. So I was up one night until 2 to 3 a.m. and decided to head to bed and go to sleep. I left the computer on with my brother's music playing. He always liked to sleep with music on, and I never did like to sleep with music on, and he would get mad at me if I turned it off. Anyways, I was laying in bed trying to sleep, not thinking about anything at all. Eminem's song was playing. It was the one with the car crashing and a girl screaming. I think the song is called Stand. So after the girl screamed in the song, I heard a little girl laugh giggle for a second or two. I opened my eyes in wide fear and thought to myself, what the flurbo? I thought maybe the voice chat, Ventrilo, at the time was still on or something on my brother's computer because it sounded so real. I get up and check, nothing. Plus it doesn't make sense if it is still in the voice chat because I would have heard people talking. I brushed off the laugh that I heard and went back to bed. So I'm trying to sleep again, and where I hear this little girl laugh again, and this time, it sounded even closer as if it was right by my bed. There was definitely a difference of location from the first laugh and the second laugh. I freaking hid underneath my blanket that night and cried myself to sleep. There were other few things that happened in this apartment before this incident happened. And after this incident, the few things happening made kind of sense now. I've had a good amount of experiences and I've shared a lot of them before, but the one I think I genuinely do not have an explanation for would be this. I was probably 15 at the time this happened. My family and I had lived in this house the better part of 10 years, and we'd all had our fair share of experiences in that house. This particular morning, I was getting ready for school and was reaching for a box of cereal off the baker's rack we had that sat directly next to the laundry room. Inside the laundry room, we had cabinets that sat over the washer and dryer, and they had doors that closed and they closed fully. Inside we had various things like light bulbs, batteries, various bits of hardware, the usual junk. Well, when I went to grab the cereal, a full container of Goho, a really tough hand soap, the container would have weighed a few pounds, flew clear out of the cabinet, opening the door in the process, hit the far wall which would have been 4 feet or so, then hit the floor. It absolutely scared the life out of me as that was the most physical our ghosts ever got. I checked to make sure it didn't slide out somehow, and the washer and dryer were both off, and it wouldn't have been an earthquake since we lived in the foothills where at best, an earthquake would make water jiggle a little bit. I really just have no explanation for that experience other than I guess the ghosts were feeling neglected and wanted attention or something. It happened in our dormitory. I was about to go to the bathroom to do laundry when my roommate told me that we eat breakfast together. So of course I said sure, let's eat together and told her it might take a while for me to finish. She said it's alright, I can wait. Then I went to the bathroom. After a while, maybe 5 minutes of scrubbing, I saw her go out of one of the shower cubicles I was washing on the sink. I did not remember her enter the bathroom at all, or maybe I didn't notice. She suddenly told me that she'll eat ahead. I was thinking maybe she's late for class or something, so I told her, alright, cool. After I was done doing laundry, I went to our room to get my bottled water and utensils. My roommate was already there. I felt kind of disappointed I wasn't able to catch up because I hate eating alone. So I went my way down to our cafeteria. I was halfway in finishing my meal when my roommate sat beside me. She told me why didn't I wait for her. So I told her she told me that she'll eat ahead. Both of us were confused. Until now, we're not sure if she just misheard or the other way around. I find it creepy though. When I was younger, like 12 or 11, I had a bunk bed. The bed had a ladder at the bottom corner by my feet. I had a nightlight that would change color. I was a bit old for a nightlight, I guess. I liked the nightlight as it illuminated the room well, however, it was somewhat poorly designed as whenever it turned red, it was a lot darker. Every night for a few years, I would see this outline of a person-shaped thing standing on my ladder looking at me. I was on the top bunk and nobody was on the bottom. I would only see this thing when the light turned red, and I remember always being afraid waiting for the light to cycle past red and back to the brighter colors. Sometimes it felt like the person-shaped thing was getting closer. I kept having this until I decided to get rid of that nightlight and have never seen it since. It would have to be also one of my stupidest moments. I was a kid trying to make myself look tough and cool, and as someone who hated the Be Merry game, I had always avoided it. But this particular night was going to be my time to shine. I knew my house was haunted and that wasn't good, but I was a kid trying to make the other kids staying over think I was cool. When the group gathered to begin, I was the first in. So the usual happens, I go in, lock the door, turn off the lights. I say it 3 times, flip on the light, and look in the mirror. Nothing. Not a single thing. So I have the advantage. The others don't know that I'm okay, so I decide to mess with them. I go to the bathroom, chill on the toilet for a minute, so proud of myself. When it's time and they've been yelling for me for long enough, I got up, washed my hands, and looked triumphantly into the mirror. And there was something crawling out of my shower. Not ring or grudge crawling, this wasn't some spooky woman on her hands and knees crawling out of the shower. It was something with the head and torso of a woman, attached to the body of a spider. I screamed, and I've had the most shrill, awful scream. Neighbors called my mom to make sure the family was okay, scream. Panicked, I rushed myself to the door, and I couldn't get it to unlock. I could hear it tapping towards me, it seemed to lumber with its huge frame. I kept crying and screaming, but the door wouldn't budge. Then the thing grabbed my fleeing hand. I can still remember the cold, clammy feel of its hand and the way it made my body run ice cold, and then that's when the door lock worked again. I suddenly felt a huge wave of relief, and as I swung the door open, I burst out telling the others to run. Of course, they didn't need to be convinced, their friend was running and crying and screaming, and they were just a bunch of kids. But we didn't get far before my mother yelled and we all froze. One of the kids had stayed back to see what the flurbo was going on. When I blubbered out what I'd seen, I was told by my mother who investigated and the kid who had hung back that there was nothing behind me when I ran. I'll just start with I'm a recovering addict, 5 years clean, my doc was Calaxian. So anyway, every single time I used after the initial wonder wore away, I would see things. Like a lot of people swear they see shadow people, but what I saw were not shadows. I just want to say that at this point, I didn't want to use any more, but the withdrawals were so bad, so I continued. So one night I was at a friend's house we had used. We moved from the living room to the kitchen. It was about 2 a.m. and I saw something appearing in the kitchen window. The only way I can describe the way it looked was like a mask. The sad tragedy mask, but its mouth was moving. Now normally I would have told myself I was just high, but as I stared it down, the other people looked too and started freaking out. So we as a group of 4 all saw it. It was speaking something into that house I think. Like a curse or death. I DK, but I left as soon as light came. Woke up early one morning and looked at my backyard. I see this very tall thing facing away from me, its limbs look like bones, too thin to even exist. It's dressed in brambles, red vital fluid running down its back. As I stare on, it turned and revealed just a pair of ragged holes for eyes and this snarl across its face. It dislodged its head, threw it at the window while trying to scrape through it, and I just ran to the bathroom. After a little while, it was gone, no marks or any trace it was there. So this happened a night that my parents went to the hospital due to a surgery. I'm pretty much of a night owl, and that night, I obviously wasn't going to sleep because of how worried I was about the surgery, so I decided to stay up all night and play video games to get rid of the bad thoughts. At some point, I was going to get water, so I got out of my room, and I saw this tall man in the hallway. I got paralyzed for a moment, but then ran back into my room. From that, my memory takes me to me screaming on the floor of my room, trying to call my parents for help and something pulling my legs. Everything was blurry, my head hurt, my ears hurt, then I passed out. I woke up on the floor of my room with some scratches on my knees. I was about 10 years old and was down the street at my friend's house. One was a grade below me, and he had a brother a grade below him. We decided I was going to stay the night at their house, so the 3 of us were walking up to my house to get some things. It's a suburban neighborhood in a good part of town, and it was about 10 p.m., so it was completely dark out. We're walking up the middle of my street talking when we hear something to our left. We see what looks like the silhouette of a man, about 6 feet tall and maybe 180 pounds, scaling up the front of my neighbor's house without any problem. This makes it sound silly and less scary, but think Spider-Man, how he effortlessly scales up buildings. It gets to the roof and it turns its head towards us, and it had bright red eyes. The three of us were paralyzed in fear. It turned back around and went over the roof into the back of my neighbor's house out of view, and we heard it knock over his old school metal trash cans. I'm not sure how long we stood in the street, but it seemed like an eternity. Sometimes kids see something they're startled by, and they play off of each other's fears and make the story scarier, but I remember when we went into my house, two of the three of us described the same thing at the same time. I still talk to these two people almost 2 decades later, and we still recall the story the exact same way.